Good deeds, very short. Register to vote. Very interesting. On the note of me voting, the last time I participated in full in an election that I can recall was 2016. I don't remember going out to vote in 2020, and I definitely did not vote in 2024. And the reason being, it was a combination of me not re registering, I guess, whatever needs to happen. I also had moved, so technically that information was not updated. The reason that was never updated is because at DMV, when I got my new ID to update the address on it, when I was asked if I wanted to register to vote, I declined. But I was also a little bit let down and discouraged by participating in voting because I felt like it just wasn't really making sense to me. Don't get me wrong, I know that voting is important. The way I look at voting is political campaigns are your job interview. You are performing your job interview, except that your interviewer is pretty much everyone, but you are addressing the questions that you believe they may have. When it comes to that, I don't know how to feel about it because sometimes I wish that the interview process for the job of president were a little bit more organic. But I guess I can kind of understand why that cannot be a thing. I understand why there need to be campaign managers and things like that because ultimately I individually cannot imagine how I individually, with other work to do, other jobs to do, would have realistically the time to present the ad campaign for you to vote for me. Because if you don't hear of me through my ad campaign, you won't realize that I'm posted. I guess it's the effect of ads in this capitalistic country, but that just doesn't work for me. It feels disingenuous. And when it comes to the presidential job, sometimes I just wish that it were a bit more almost in a private setting. But I also understand that this individual represents us all. But by private, I mean when I interview for a job, the audience is only like a one on one. It's like me versus the interviewer, and perhaps any other members of the panel who may be present there. But when it comes to the way we elect a president, I think that the best way to go about it would be something like, okay, everybody cast your vote. Like the actual election be the election where people actually express themselves, cast their votes. You get a very rough idea of where the country is, and then break that down into where each state is. And the territories themselves, let them vote, I guess, in ghost form, since for some reason their votes don't count. But you get to know where they're at as well. Whatever value comes up most commonly shared, even if the candidacy is boiled down to just bipartisan, at least everybody was heard. And then that's when the interview process begins for the election. And then maybe we have a second round of an election where people once again vote to see if they remain the same. And that way, based off the performance from the candidate's campaign, you can decide based off what they were saying, what they were doing during their period of campaigning. You either commit to what you voted with originally, or maybe you don't and you change because your values may have changed, or maybe your belief in the capabilities of this candidate evolved. Therefore, your value shifted, something like that. But throughout the year, throughout the election year, that is the interview process. Let all of the candidates visit every single state, and in every single state, you are like at a courthouse, I don't know, some safe government building, and you elect a representative from maybe each county, something like that. I know that the president will collaborate more closely with governors, but in the same manner that governors are supposed to be collaborating with like mayors in their counties and stuff like that, at some point, presidential policy is going to affect the state, which is going to affect what those other folks enforce. Why wouldn't you have the president become familiar with what those lower ranking officials in government have to say about their respective communities? I think something like that would make the process of electing the president a little more genuine for me, because you have to visit every single state and don't forget about the territories as well. So this interview process, in a sense, could begin a little over a year before the actual election. Say, if you are posted for candidacy, then obviously you cannot take any time off during all this, because you have 50 places to go to, along with however many territories we have. And this is not a one-day thing, like, oh, I visited this state today and in one day I can get this process done. Maybe you need to spend like a solid week in this state that you're visiting to get very familiar with what's going on. So if you're spending a week and you only have 365 days in a year, how much would that translate into? Like a week times 50? Right there, spending 1 week with every state alone is 350 days. The remaining 15 days, somehow, you have to do something similar for territories, because don't forget that those are US citizens. And even if they don't get to vote for you, just because they don't get to vote for you doesn't mean that you can just neglect them and not mention them, not visit them, when the rules and laws that we come up with out here are going to affect them as well. I guess I don't vote anymore because I just felt like I'm not happy with the way things are done. Therefore, why would I participate on something that I'm not fully on board with, fully believing? And if other people are deciding for me, ultimately, I haven't had my life changed by voting. Say, whoever I voted for the last time I voted, none of the things that were my concerns were addressed, because clearly, I guess, as a society, we're not united on those needs and wants and desires. Clearly, I don't belong in that society. So, like, why be involved? I look at voting as I'm giving you power. I'm saying that I want to give my power to you to have this position of power. And when it comes to campaigning, I think it also should include our allies, foreign allies. So you already have 350 days to spend domestically, plus however many other days you should spend with your incorporated territories, plus the allies, because we're not alone in this world. And we have a grand influence over the rest of the world. So how can we schedule for that? How can I say I were going out for president? How could it be arranged for me so that I can visit those very important allies? If you take what I'm saying and simplify it even further, all I'm trying to say is doing it like that feels more united. It feels like we are bridging gaps. We're bridging gaps on state levels, but even further down to your actual direct community, because as president, unless something really bad happens in a community, like say one of those devastating school events or devastating weather, the president is not really ever thinking about us or ever talking about us until something major happens. Why does it have to be like that? Why do we have to wait for something like that to happen? So at least during your campaign season, make sure that you go everywhere, not just the places that give you the most electoral votes. That's where I feel like it stops being genuine and feeling like you're actually out here trying to be a servant leader. That's pretty much it on this one, how I see this particular topic. For the next season, I'm probably also gonna pass on it unless something that convinces me happens. Like, okay, I guess I could be involved in this as opposed to letting other people choose. But even if other people choose on my behalf, is the Electoral College actually going to listen to what I'm saying? Because sometimes they vote unlike how people voted. I don't know. I think that we need a major reform on everything in this country. Healthcare needs reform, education needs reform, our government structure needs reform. I don't think the structure of the government itself needs a lot of revision. I think it's the way things are done within those organizations, within those institutions that need the reform. But it'll never happen unless you have honest people who actually understand their role and take it seriously, as opposed to just acting kind of like a puppet and listening only to those who have money or those who are already influential figures outside of politics because of how they influence the masses. Or the 17 states that are the only ones we ever seem to hear from that you're visiting and campaigning at, but a lot of other places never see you or hear from you. You are supposed to be the influential figure. You're our representative. How is a representative of a nation proud and happy and satisfied with their job performance if under his or her watch people are still suffering? You won't be able to alleviate everybody's suffering, but at least march toward beginning to alleviate the suffering of people, as opposed to incorporating rules and regulations and policies and whatever the hell that only satisfy a very small percentage of people. Like, it only makes a certain percentage of people experience the benefit. You cannot disconnect from everyone else, or else your people are gonna disappear. You know, that would suck. Anyways, you guys, something like that. This is not a topic I'm very good with because I'm very simple-minded with it. I'm like, I haven't experienced any benefit from whoever voted, but what's common is I have been fine. And even though I have had better years than others, I can't just give up. You know what I mean? It's just what it is. I can just sit here and express myself on it and then maybe hear what you guys have to say. Do you take voting seriously? Do you understand how it works? Do you actually believe it has an impact? Or do you think this is all about making people hate each other's differences to the point that they don't hang out together during Thanksgiving or something like that? Whatever controversies were happening last season, this just serves to divide us. I want for the process to actually unify people. And I think the way to unify it would be you have to visit everybody, you have to address everybody, and you even have to include the people who go beyond our borders. If we enjoy taking their resources, then we gotta enjoy interacting with them as well. Okay, that's it. Bye.